Hello and welcome back to the English Journey podcast. I'm Tom.
And I'm Emily. We are so happy you're joining us today for a very special topic.
Emily, I want to start today with a question. Have you ever wondered why, at 2 a.m., when the whole world is asleep, your brain decides to replay every awkward situation from 10 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. Or what about this? You get a text message that just says, "We need to talk." And your mind immediately creates 47 different worst-case scenarios.
Exactly. That feeling, that experience is anxiety. I like to call it the Netflix of the mind. It never runs out of shows to play, and they are always in the horror genre.
That's a perfect description. So, in the next 30 minutes, we are not going to teach you how to delete anxiety. Honestly, that's impossible, and it's not even necessary.
Instead, we're going to learn how to negotiate with it, how to understand it, and most importantly, how not to let it be the director of your life. Okay, so first, let's make one thing clear. Anxiety itself is not a bad thing. Think of it like a smoke alarm in your house. It's great when it works at the right time, but it's terrible when it goes off loudly just because a leaf falls outside.
Exactly. It's not a system error. It's not because you are a negative thinker. It's because you are a human and you are living.
That's a great point. Let's break it down. There's normal anxiety. This is when you feel worried before a big job interview or when a family member is sick. It has a clear reason, a time limit, and it doesn't stop you from living your life.
But then there's what we might call problematic anxiety or an anxiety disorder. That's when your brain becomes an overly creative scriptwriter, creating disaster stories so big that even Marvel would be jealous.
I love that comparison. So the big question is, why does our brain create this feeling of anxiety in the first place?
Well, your brain is programmed to protect you from danger. It's a survival mechanism. Think about primitive times, when our ancestors faced real threats like wild animals or disease. Anxiety was the signal that helped them to run, to hide, and to survive.
This system is called the fight or flight response. It was designed for real visible threats. You see a lion, the alarm goes off. You see a storm coming, you run for cover.
But in our modern world, most of our dangers are imaginary. We worry about the future, about what other people think, about things that might happen. The danger could be an email from your boss, a test you haven't studied for, or a life you're not sure you want but feel you have to achieve.
That's the key conflict, isn't it? Your brain still thinks you're in the jungle facing a lion, but in reality, you're just sitting in your office looking at a computer screen. This conflict between imaginary danger and modern reality is why anxiety can make you feel so tired.
So let's talk about what happens to your body. When you feel anxious, your body is getting ready to fight. Well, nothing. Air, maybe?
Right. Your heart beats faster to pump more blood to your muscles, but you are just sitting at your desk worrying about a deadline. Your stomach feels tight because your body thinks it needs to run away, but you are just thinking about a date you have tomorrow.
That's exactly why anxiety is so physically exhausting. Your body is constantly preparing for a big battle that never actually happens.
And if you think you're the only one feeling this way, you are definitely not alone. Statistics show that over 30% of adults experience a significant level of anxiety at some point in their lives.
It's so common that it's almost like a second language for modern humans. You are not broken, and you are not alone.
Okay, let's take a moment. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what am I really worried about? You might discover a few common triggers or causes.
I think one of the biggest triggers for many people today is social media and the culture of comparison. Social media is like a museum of fake success. Everyone displays their best moments, while their real life is kept hidden in storage.
That's so true. You see a friend traveling to the Maldives, but you don't know they worked overtime for 3 months and took out a loan for that trip. You see a colleague get a promotion, but you don't know how many weekends they sacrificed.
Exactly. We are constantly comparing our behind the scenes with everyone else's main stage.
This connects perfectly to the next point, information overload. Our brains were designed to process information from about 150 people in our tribe. Now, we receive news from the entire world, with constant updates on every disaster, crisis, and drama.
It's like asking a computer from the 1990s to run 50 programs at the same time. It will lag, it will freeze, and it might crash. Our brain does the same thing.
Now, let's talk about something a bit deeper. Our anxiety can also be connected to our family and our childhood environment.
Right. Anxiety can be inherited in two ways. First, there are genetics. If your parents had a tendency to worry, you might inherit a brain that is more sensitive to stress.
But even more important is what we can call learned inheritance. If you grew up in a family where people were always worried about money, safety, or what others thought, you learn that the world is a dangerous place that requires constant attention.
It's like learning a language as a child. Eventually, you speak it fluently without thinking. For many people, anxiety becomes the default language of the mind.
And that default language is spoken a lot because of modern work and study pressure. We live in an always-on society. Emails at 10 p.m., overlapping deadlines, the pressure to stand out from the crowd. The modern workplace can feel like a marathon with no finish line.
It's the same for students too. The pressure from grades, rankings, and comparison with friends starts so early. It's like asking children to run a race before they even know how to walk steadily.
Finally, there's one more major cause: big life changes. Our brains love stability and routines because it saves energy. But life is full of change. Moving to a new city, changing jobs, getting married, getting divorced, losing a loved one.
Each big change is like having to relearn how to live. And it doesn't matter if the change is good or bad. Even positive changes like getting a promotion or having a baby can cause anxiety because the brain has to process so much new information.
It's like a software update for your computer. The result might be better, but the update process itself always makes the system run slow and can have some bugs. One of the most interesting things about anxiety is that it shows up in many different forms. Sometimes it's very clear. You're afraid of failing an exam, you're afraid of being rejected by someone, you're afraid of failure. You know exactly what the fear is.
But other times, it's vague. You don't know exactly what you're worried about. You just have this feeling that something is wrong. And the more unclear the feeling is, the more you worry.
Let's talk about a few common types that many people experience. Emily, why don't you start with the most famous one?
The most famous one is definitely future anxiety. I call it the what if game. This is the favorite game of an anxious brain. What if I don't find a job? What if I get sick? What if I never get married?
Your brain becomes a sci-fi or science fiction writer of disasters. It writes hundreds of different future scenarios, and every single one is a horror story.
Exactly. The next type is worrying about other people's expectations. We live in a world where we imagine there is always an audience watching us. You worry about what other people are thinking of you.
But the funny thing is, they are probably busy worrying about what you are thinking of them. It's like a play where all the actors are worried about the audience, but nobody is actually in the audience watching the play.
That is so true. And speaking of watching others, that brings us to FOMO, the fear of missing out. This is a very modern form of anxiety, especially with social media. You see pictures and stories and worry that you are missing out on fun or important experiences.
But here is the sad truth. When you are worrying about missing out on things online, you are actually missing out on your real offline life.
You know, all of these examples show something important about modern anxiety. It often doesn't arrive like a big, loud storm. It's more like a quiet drizzle, a very light rain. It seeps into your life and makes you feel cold over time, and you might not even realize it's happening.
That's a powerful image, and it leads to a final type of anxiety that is often overlooked or missed, anxiety that is hidden under busyness.
Yes, this is when you keep yourself extremely busy. You fill every minute of your schedule. You work without rest. On the surface, you look productive. But deep down, being busy is a way to avoid facing difficult feelings like insecurity or emptiness.
So busyness is like a mask. It can mask the anxiety, it can cover the problem, but it can't fix it.
And we want to start by saying something very important. We are not going to tell you to stop worrying or just think positive.
Exactly. Those phrases are cliches. They sound nice, but they rarely work. Instead, today we want to invite you to try some gentle ways to care for your anxiety, not get rid of it.
Let's start with your body. A powerful technique is the 4-7-8 breathing method. This isn't magic, it's science. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you send a signal to your brain that says, I am safe, you can turn off the alarm.
How does it work? It's simple. Breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds. Breathe out through your mouth for 8 seconds. Repeat this 4 times.
You're basically telling your body's alarm system, hey, that was just a falling leaf. There's no tiger here. You can be quiet now.
I love that. Another amazing technique to bring you back to your body is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. When you're anxious, your mind is lost in the future or the past. This pulls you back to the present moment.
So wherever you are, you just need to notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste.
For example, if I'm in a cafe feeling anxious, I see the wooden table, the waiter, my cup, a lamp, a painting. I touch the table surface, the warm cup, my phone, the chair. I hear music, people talking, the coffee machine. I smell coffee beans, and I taste the bitter flavor of my espresso. It feels like you are slowly leaving your head and stepping back into your body.
Now for a mental technique. There's a famous saying, name it to tame it. This means you give your feeling a name. Instead of saying, I feel terrible, try to be specific. I am feeling anxious about my presentation tomorrow.
When you name the emotion, you turn a vague, scary feeling into a specific problem. A specific problem is something you can start to solve. You can write it down in a journal. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just be honest.
Another mental shift is to change the questions you ask yourself. This is about reframing. Instead of asking, what's the worst thing that could happen, try asking, what's the best thing that could happen? What would I do if the worst thing that happened? You'll often find you are stronger than you think. Will I still worry about this in 5 years?
It's like changing the TV channel in your mind from the horror channel to the hope channel.
I love that. And for a very practical strategy, you can set a limit on your worry time.
Yes, give yourself a worry appointment. For example, say, okay, I will allow myself to think and worry about this for 15 minutes at 5 p.m. After that, I will do something else. You acknowledge the worry, but you don't let it control your entire day. It's not about not worrying, it's about worrying with discipline.
And finally, never forget the simple things. Gentle movement, taking a warm bath, listening to calm music, or going for a walk without your phone.
You're not running away from your anxiety. You are simply creating a little space for your mind to rest and recover.
We also want to quickly mention 3 common traps or mistakes that can actually make anxiety worse. Knowing what not to do is sometimes just as important as knowing what to do. So let's dive into the first common mistake. The first mistake is trying to control everything. Trying to control every single thing in your life is like trying to change the weather by staring at it.
You just make yourself tired and nothing changes.
Exactly. A very useful idea here is to understand the difference between your circle of concern and your circle of influence. It's normal to be concerned about many things: the economy, politics, what others think of you. These are in your circle of concern.
But you should only focus your energy on your circle of influence, the things you can actually change. These are your own actions, your attitude, and your effort. Don't waste energy trying to control the rain.
Focus on remembering to bring an umbrella.
That's a perfect way to put it. This leads to the second common mistake, which is very internal.
Yes, this is a big one. Blaming yourself for having negative feelings. Being anxious about being anxious is an endless loop. It's like getting angry about being angry and then getting even angrier about that feeling.
It just goes on forever and makes you feel worse.
Exactly. Your negative emotions are not your fault. They are not a sign that you are weak or broken. They are just information. Think of them like the warning lights on your car's dashboard. The check engine light isn't bad. It's just a signal telling you that something needs your attention.
I love that analogy. And the third and final mistake is something we've mentioned before, but it's so important we need to say it again: comparison.
A wise person once said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." You can never, ever win the comparison game because there will always be someone who is better than you in some way.
Someone with a better job, a nicer car, a more exciting vacation. The list is endless.
Instead, the only healthy comparison you should make is comparing yourself today with yourself yesterday. Are you a little kinder than you were yesterday? Did you learn one new thing? That is the only comparison that leads to growth, not anxiety. We want to end with an important message. Anxiety is not your enemy. Think of it as an overprotective friend who always wants to keep you safe, but is just a little too loud and annoying sometimes.
You don't need to eliminate anxiety. You just need to learn to live peacefully with it. The question is not if you have anxiety, but who is driving the car of your life? Is it you or is it your anxiety?
Learning to live with it is like learning to live with a noisy roommate. You set boundaries. You don't let them decide everything, but you don't kick them out because sometimes they have something important to say.
Remember, you are stronger than your anxiety. You have survived 100% of your worst day so far. That is an amazing achievement.
And if you are listening to this podcast at 2 a.m. because you can't sleep, that's okay too. You are not alone. Try the 4-7-8 breath. Be kind to yourself and know that tomorrow is a new day.
Thank you for joining us on the English Journey podcast.
We'll see you next time. Take care.